Pakistan cricket at its best. 1 minute down, next minute up.
Thanks very much, folks, for joining me once again. Sachin here for PakPassion, bringing you another exclusive interview. I'm delighted to have this guest, who I would describe as one of the voices of cricket at the moment. He played for England 6 times in the past. He's a Leicestershire legend. 666. Let me repeat that, 666 first-class wickets. He was one of the Cricketers of the Year in 1988 named by Wisden. He's the BBC Radio cricket correspondent, and as I say, he's one of the voices of international cricket, the one and only Jonathan Agnew. Aggers, very warm welcome to you.
Well, thank you, Saj. I'm very pleased to be here. And of course, just back from Pakistan only about 10 days ago. So fresh of news, full of news of that lovely part of the world.
Well, I was just going to ask you, Aggers, I know the players always say that, we don't get time to venture out. It's hotel, ground, training. But is that different for you, or did you not get a chance to see much of the country as well?
Well, I suppose if you take the last 3 trips as a whole, I've seen a lot. I mean, there are places, there's no point messing around. There are places in Pakistan where you can't go, and you do have to be careful. Now, on the one extreme, my wife came to Pakistan. We went up to Islamabad, went up to Murray, and up there in the hills, just the 2 of us together, walking through the valleys, having a fantastic time. She loved it. It's the first time she'd been to Pakistan. So that we felt completely safe, and she'll happily go back. And then you put that with the extreme that we had during the Champions Trophy, and I'm not sure where this came from. This sort of security threat about people looking to kidnap people involved in the Champions Trophy. I mean, we didn't see any of that. It did slightly pull us up. We were in mainly Lahore, so we got around Lahore quite a bit. And actually, I went to the Wagah border for the first time, which was absolutely extraordinary. I mean, what a fantastic spectacle that is. And I mean, it is a spectacle. And it is entertainment there on the Pakistan-India border. I mean, one of the most fortified borders in the world, let's face it. And they do this incredible, it's almost like showing off, strutting, preening, perfectly choreographed. They obviously rehearse it and practice it together because of the way that it's done. People are there face painting. There's drums going. I mean, it's an extraordinary sight. And at the end of it, they shake hands and walk off. And it's, you just think, why on earth can't everything be as simple as that on one of these most, let's say, most fortified, most hostile borders in the world? The guards there go through this every day to crowds of cheering people, and at the end of it, they shake hands and go back to where they came from. I mean, it was lovely. I thought it was really moving, actually, moving but frustrating, given as we know the politics that's around cricket at the moment.
I was just going to say, it's such a shame that the politicians can't do that sort of thing, because I know on special occasions in India and Pakistan, they exchange sweets as well, on the border as well.
Yeah, well, I can believe it. I mean, I've been to a lot of India-Pakistan games. Clearly, they're always ICC matches, sadly, and it is frustrating because, in many ways, sport has shown itself to be such a good healer. And I mean, South Africa, I guess, is the most obvious example of that, and where sport really played a massive role. And you've got cricket that is such a passionately followed sport by the 2 countries involved in this, in India and Pakistan. And you just think, it's just such a waste of people's energy and lives and everything that, you can't actually just have 2 teams playing cricket. Now, the one of the ones I went to was, of course, the big semi-final up in Mohali in the World Cup there. And the Indian, I think I'm right in saying, I'll probably get the titles wrong, but I think I'm right in saying that the Indian Prime Minister and the Pakistan President, might be the other way around, might be Prime Minister and President. Anyway, they were both there to watch this massive, high-profile World Cup semi-final between India and Pakistan. Now, I have to say, getting into the place was obviously very, very difficult. There were like missile launchers around the ground, and you've got to pinch yourself a bit. But the game still happened. You just think just a bit of positive thought. These things can happen. So, sort of like Multan, where we were for quite a long time. The security there is very tight, and I suppose a little bit intimidating for people who aren't used to it. I'm thinking of the players, thinking of the England players are not using it as any excuse whatsoever for their performances, but to go to the cricket grounds, to go to work with that level of security, and we did too, guns and fortified, all that sort of stuff. So maybe that does take a bit of getting used to. But if needs must, and it gets the cricket played, then surely that's the most important thing at the end of the day. Is starting to break down barriers. I'd have thought.
And it was a little bit, well, unusual, really, that Pakistan were the host Aggers for the Champions Trophy. And normally the hosts have first pick on venues and they play all the matches at home. But of course, this time around, it was almost as if India were the host and Pakistan had to travel out to Dubai to play that match out in against India, which is a little bit surreal, wasn't it?
Well, it is surreal, and you feel it can't really carry on like this. I know that there's a change now for the next, what, two or three ICC events. Those that are co-hosted that involve India and Pakistan. Now, India will have to go to that second country to play Pakistan. Now, that's still not ideal, is it? That's still not what you want. I mean, I was in Ahmedabad for the last 50 over World Cup when India played Pakistan, and it was just 100,000 blue shirts. Um, and that's not the answer either. It's sport is more than that. Sport's about the people. Sport's about the fans. Sport is about the players. And I don't blame India's players. I really don't think they've got anything to do with this. I think if they were told to go and play in Pakistan, they'll go and play. The players, as we've known, going right back through the generations, actually get on extremely well. They understand each other. They like each other. They know each other. It's not the players that's the problem at all. And so I do feel a bit sorry for them. I felt a bit sorry for the Indian players on one extent in Dubai, because they'll have known that everybody is saying, "Cuh, they've got it easy. They're sitting there. Yeah, this all one-sided. It's all loaded in their favour." Well, I can understand them getting a bit shirty about that because they were the best side in the tournament. I think they're the best side in the world at the moment. So they don't need that to be cheapened, if you like, by people pointing out the obvious. Because on the other hand, I mean, I said on radio at some stage, look, you have to accept that this is playing into India's hands. It makes it easier for them. Oh, the outcry I got from Indian supporters. You think, well, are you really telling me that's not true? Are you really suggesting that playing every game on the same ground and everything else and practicing in the same place and doing no travelling, you're really suggesting that's not an advantage? I mean, grow up. The New Zealand team, who I saw just before the semi-final, they had to fly to Dubai from Lahore, which is a 3 hour flight, 3 hours 15 flight. You've got to get to the airport, both ends, and everything else. But the actual flight itself, on the plane, the flight is 3 hours. They flew back, because I saw Kane Williamson in the restaurant that evening. They flew back at 3 in the morning. 3 in the morning, 2 days before their semi-final, and having played no game, but they did so just to accommodate the fact that some of the games were taking place in Dubai. What sort of preparation's that? And the New Zealand fellas are lovely guys. They don't complain. They just get on with it. But that's the reality. And for people to say, well, it's not an advantage well, let's, for goodness sake, grow up. Just accept the situation. Even India's players know it. And of course, there's a lot of chuntering going on amongst other teams. But that's not taking away the fact that India were the best team. And I think the main thing they had in their advantage, well, two main things having their advantage there, they could pick a squad that played all of its game on that surface in that ground. They could pick a squad to suit that. Whereas every other team had to pick a squad, 15 players, that had to mix and match. And certainly the games I saw in Lahore, which would have made a brilliant final, by the way, the pitch there was outstanding. You had some pace in it, ball coming on, really quick outfield. It'd have been a brilliant final if it had been played there. But you pick a different team there than you do in Dubai. So the teams that were playing all over the place had to, they had to accommodate with their squad. So that was definitely an area in which India benefited.
You mentioned, Aggers, about India being the strongest team at the moment. They're getting a lot of things right, especially in white ball cricket. The finances help, but what are they doing that other teams aren't doing so well?
They got a lot of depth, haven't they? Yeah, they got so many players coming in. The IPL it's like a gold mine for the white ball cricketers of India. I think if you want to compare how India went about it and some other teams, compared to England, for instance, is that India adapted to a 50 overs format. And you look at their team, and there are more test match based players in their team, and others too. Play teams like New Zealand were very similar. Basically a test match team. Whereas England, they just didn't get the hang and the pace of 50 overs cricket at all. They didn't get a selection for 50 overs cricket. And so they were always going up against it, really. They were, I don't know whether they were trying to bazball it or what they were trying to do, but they made a real mess of it. The batting was hopeless. And they didn't learn. I know it's a short tournament, you only get the 3 games, but they didn't learn, and that was the disappointing thing from an England perspective. I mean, to go there and get no points. I know Pakistan's point came through a washout, but I mean, to actually end up with zero is pretty rubbish, isn't it? When Afghanistan's one of your teams, and they're a good side. They'll win one of these tournaments soon enough. Yeah, they've got some good players in there now, and they're getting experience of playing the franchises. That's only a few years you can see the advance of a team like Afghanistan, which is again from an English perspective what makes England's performance, and I guess from your perspective, Pakistan's performance so disappointing.
Well, I was just going to come to Pakistan next, because I don't know how much of their matches you managed to see, but they flattered to deceive, despite being the hosts once again, and there was absolute uproar at the performances during that tournament. Pakistan are another team that are struggling in major tournaments.
They seem rather rudderless to me. I mean, I've lost count of the captains that they have now and who is captain of what, but there's a lot going on there. And let's face it, they've had a great result in New Zealand in at least one game anyway. The coach, what's going on there, and the whole management structure. It's just there's something frustrating about Pakistan cricket, and it's always been the case. And I'm not preaching because there's a lot of wrong in English cricket as well. I'm just saying as an outsider looking in. I know Jason Gillespie very well. And to be there watching him on the last tour, the test tour, was really sad actually, because Jason is a very, very committed, very wholehearted, very decent, very kind man. He's a hardworking coach, and he expects people to work hard. But I would think as somebody who, and I'm talking about outsiders, so you know what I mean when I talk about an outsider coming into, an Australian going into a Pakistan dressing room, whatever. And there's a language situation, and there's all that stuff going on. I wouldn't have thought you could get much better than someone like Jason Gillespie, actually. And so to see the way that he was removed, really, lost all power, lost all authority, I thought was really sad. And I knew, and I said goodbye to him the last test in Islamabad, which of course Pakistan won, but I knew that was the end for him. He couldn't cope. He couldn't put up with that massive selection committee that was going into that huge corporate room in a hotel to pick the team without him in it. And he was saying, "How do I coach this team? And I don't know what the team is. How can I coach?" And so they've got to sort all that out. I mean, they've got to be a more streamlined structure. I would have thought about Pakistan's cricket, and poor old Babar, he gets it in the neck. He's a beautiful player. He's a lovely bloke. But I wonder that, what if the pressure is just so much on him these days, and it's pressure from his own fans, really, isn't it? I mean, it's interesting comparing him with Sachin Tendulkar, which I think is quite a fair comment to make. And then I think that Sachin, yes, he had expectation and he had pressure, but it was always seemed to be a very positive pressure, and it was, we know you can do it, Sachin. Out you go and entertain us. Whereas with Baba, it just seems to be a bit more hostile than that. That might be completely wrong, and that's just again an outsider looking in. But there does always seem to be a lot of pressure put on Baba, and that if he doesn't perform and the team loses, it's always Baba who gets the blame for it. But I say that's an outsider looking in. All I know is that as someone who potters out there into the middle to go and say and look at the pitch and stuff, Babar Azam will always come up and say hello. He's always incredibly polite. I think he's a lovely fella. And so I always feel a bit of sympathy for Baba when the knives are out for him, which they seem to be rather constantly at the moment. But maybe the break at the moment will do him good anyway. That's
Yes.
something that all good players need. And if you are struggling a bit, just get away. Let's go and do something different. Go and clear your head, and that might be the making of him.
Yes, absolutely. I guess, and just a bit about England. Obviously, Josh Butler's resigned as captain, and everyone was raving about Bazball, and suddenly now there seems to be more critics than fans of Bazball.
Well, I'll be honest, I never raved about Bazball any more than just about 8 months. The first 8 months or so were terrific, and it was a mindset which pulled an England team out of the absolute doldrums into a team that actually believed in themselves again. They went out and played. They played good attacking cricket and they won games. But for me, it was never going to work long term. There's a reason that Test cricket is played over 5 days, and there's a reason that going out and playing like this has never worked in the past. It's because it doesn't work. Because you're just taking too much of a risk. You're just giving wickets away. And while they have won games, yes, they've also lost games they should never have lost. They've lost them spectacularly. I mean, look at that. The last game up in Rawalpindi, the Test match there. Okay, they were a bit phased by all the fans and heaters and God knows what there was going on. But that was a bit of a sideshow, really. And we didn't know that Ben Stokes, the captain, had his house robbed. But that still, I don't think, accounts for a miserable defeat in 2.5 days. It was just it was awful. It really was. And the good teams like that shouldn't be losing matches like that. It's a flat pitch. They won the toss and batted first. They had everything in their favour, but they do that. And so, no, I'm not a fan of Bazball. I like players having the belief and the confidence in themselves to go out and play their natural game, which is something in my generation was quite hard to do because you knew if you failed, you're probably going to get dropped. They have much more support these days. But they got to knuckle down. And I thought Rob Key, in that press conference he gave the other day, he hit the nail on the head with one thing in particular, which is we keep talking rubbish. We keep talking nonsense. Course they do. They do talk some absolute garbage. That's the way we play. And we're going to go and do this. I know we don't care how many they score. We'll go knock them off. I mean, who are these people? They must be completely insane. If that really is the way that they talk about cricket and their plans in the dressing room, well, they're never going to succeed. They will not win the Ashes playing Bazball, whatever Bazball is. We define Bazball as going out there and just trying to smack the ball about and take control. I think it is a bit deeper than that. It is more of a mindset. But to go to Australia and win the Ashes, they are going to have to play every type of cricket and play every type of cricket. And I mean attacking cricket, defensive cricket, cricket where you speculate a bit, cricket where you go into your shell, all of those sorts of things. They're going to have to play every type of cricket at the top of their game if they're to win the Ashes. And that does not just mean you go out there and smack it about. So that's the way we play.
And finally, I guess 50 over cricket, it's still sort of up in the air as to whether 50 over cricket has a place in the international calendar, with many people feeling that it's on its last legs. Do you think the Champions Trophy in Pakistan and the UAE did enough to revitalise 50 over cricket?
I'm not sure that it did. I mean, it does seem to be in terminal decline, doesn't it? Because people just want to play T20.
Yeah.
The problem with 50 overs cricket is that you just don't often get a good game. And I mean, I was looking back at the Champions Trophy. I didn't see. Well, the Australia game was okay. Yeah, there were moments, but that you don't get the sort of the nail biting last over finishes that you seem to get very regularly in T20 cricket. And a dull 50 overs game. I mean, if a game in 50 overs has got 30 overs to run and it's over, it's painful, isn't it? And everyone's just willing it to end and just sort of get rid of it. So I'm not so sure. The people who want it, of course, are mainly television people and administrators because it's a longer form of the game. They can ram in more adverts. It's a big money generator. But whether the players can adapt to playing it, and also, by the way, I think that certainly in this country, it's very much a spectator sport. And I hate to forget those people who every year buy tickets, them and their mate, they've done it for 20 years. They go along to the One Day International at Trent Bridge every year to go and see whoever it is, go with your mate, meet at Nottingham railway station, go across, have a pint, watch the game. They watch the whole game, they get a result, and that's it. I'll see you next year, Trevor. Yeah, great stuff, mate. And there's a lot of that in 50 overs cricket that you don't get in T20 because it is you give a day out with your mate, don't you? So that is important. But the problem for those two people I mentioned there, they're not going to get the best teams anymore. You get players rested and rotated, and you know, I think a bit of that bite has gone out of 50 overs as well, but it's certainly something that the administrators will be looking at.
Well, I guess absolute pleasure listening to your views on a variety of topics there. I know you're extremely busy at the moment, going up and down the country with your tour with Phil Tufnell. So I would urge
Yes.
all the people listening to this to get your tickets if you haven't already got them. I've heard some fantastic feedback from those people who've been to previous shows.
Good man, you'd be very welcome, Saj, and keep going with the podcast. It's very, very important. You know, keep the voice of Pakistan cricket going.
Thanks very much, Aggers. Really appreciate it.
Talk soon.
Take care. Bye.